Plus, Michael Feinstein was here for the Cabaret Festival. And Michael, that puts me 1 degree of separation from Liza Minnelli. Michael is best friends with Liza Minnelli. I am 1 degree of separation from Liza. It's the most thrilling thing.
Hey there, it's Connor Muller and welcome to Let's Chat Showbiz. This podcast is all about Australian showbiz. We're talking the glitz, the glam, the tough times and everything in between. Let's get this show on the road. Today's guest is a talented performer who has achieved a great deal throughout his career. He's a conductor, musical director, an entertainer, a teacher, and as Virginia Gay recently described him, the Doctor of Cabaret. We're thrilled to welcome Dr Trevor Jones.
Hello.
How are you?
Living the dream.
Living the dream? Oh,
I say that, and if I say it enough, I'll believe it, right?
That's right, yes.
Yeah. I'm living a dream.
A dream.
I don't know if it's a good one or a bad one, but it's a dream, you know? Someone has dreamt this and now it's here.
And here you are on Let's Chat Showbiz. That's my dream.
Exactly.
All right. Now, last year you were in Pirates of Penzance with...
This year,
was it?
it was 2025.
I stand corrected.
Yeah.
You were the Major General and other roles, but you also were the music director?
Yeah.
What was that like?
A lot.
Was it?
So we did, the Pirates of Penzance, you know, is traditionally done with a full orchestra and a chorus of 25 or 30 people, several lead roles. We did the whole show with 5 people, including all the musical accompaniment. So I was at the piano for the whole show, almost the whole show, with some exceptions. I played 4 different roles. I had costume changes on stage behind the piano. There was even one moment, one of my favourite moments in the show that just caused me stress every single night was I was playing one of the sisters, Kate, in a full skirt. In fact, that costume change happened in full sight of the audience. I'd come out from the piano and the rest of the cast would put my skirt and my shawl and my hat on me. I'm a very beautiful lady. I can tell you that now. The next character I play is the Major General, but there's some hiding behind the piano in the meantime, and the changeover from Kate to the Major General is almost instantaneous. So I'd be behind the piano, taking off the skirt and the shawl, putting on the Major General jacket, leaving the hat on because it was visible, putting the shawl back over the Major General jacket, popping up from behind the piano to do a line, popping back down, throw it off, put the new hat, and now I'm the Major General. It was insane, but so much fun. And it's such a loved piece. I think I was talking to someone this morning. I think in Australia, particularly the Pirates of Penzance, that Simon Gallagher, John English production of Pirates of Penzance was such an iconic Australian production that it was a lot of Australians' gateway drug to musical theatre. They saw that production, fell in love with Marina Pryor, fell in love with Simon and John. June Bronhill was in it when I first saw it. So Australians love the Pirates. So it was really well attended. It was very cleverly rewritten to accommodate the smaller cast and also update things a little bit. You know, the original ends with them all saying, well, that's okay because they love their queen. There's a lot of problems with us saying that now, particularly since we don't have a queen. So it needed some significant updating, and Richard Carroll, the artistic director of The Hayes, did a magnificent job of it. And it was bonkers fun, but exhausting.
Yeah,
it was,
of course.
I don't think any music theatre show will feel difficult ever again for me or any of the rest of that cast, because we'll be like, oh, we come on and sing 4 songs through that. Great. It was a joy.
Now, you're a well-established conductor as well. Tell me about that.
I've always loved conducting, and I trained in classical music. So I trained as actually a classical singer. And one of my first jobs out of uni was working in a school. And when you're a music teacher in a school, you have to do everything. You know, you might be conducting the concert band or the choir, regardless of how much background and experience you've got. And for me, conducting brings together all of my things, because you have to be right on top of the music. You have to be a really deep musician. You have to have really good people skills to be a conductor, because really your job is to harness all the people in front of you to play together and to think the same way about how they're playing the music. And that involves a lot of people skills. And it involves people skills through gesture. And the gesture is important, but you're coaxing things and saying, you're listening, you're analysing as you go along. It's like, I need a little bit more of that. I need to hear less of that. So for me, it's kind of the pinnacle of everything I do. And I've always loved opera. And I think because I'm a singer, I understand how singers breathe and I can tell when singers are going to sing. So as an accompanist on the piano, but also as a conductor, I'm very good at knowing how to work with a singer. I'm not interested in conducting Mozart symphonies and Haydn symphonies and things like that, or Mahler. As much as I love them, I'm a conductor that conducts choirs and singers because that's my repertoire.
Yeah.
And it brings together so many parts of my world and it's so collaborative and I just love it.
Lovely. And in 2011, you won the Brian Stacey Award for the Emerging Australian Conductors. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about that. What's that?
So Brian Stacey is a really iconic person in the Australian music theatre and opera landscape. Brian conducted in so many different styles and genres. He was the original conductor of Phantom of the Opera in Australia, and he died just before Sunset Boulevard. So he was due to conduct the opening of Sunset Boulevard and died in a motorcycle accident just beforehand. And his partner and a lot of his colleagues and his children formed this trust to award emerging Australian conductors because there's not a lot of training and support for Australian conductors. There's a lot more now, but back when they founded this, there wasn't a lot of support. So this was really an award to give conductors a little bit of money to go and do some more training and work. And I was working in opera a little bit at the time. I was working on the Victorian State School Spectacular. And it was a real honour to be awarded that because until that point, I don't think I felt confident defining myself as a conductor. I would always say I was a singer or a musician, but that made me go, I'm a conductor now. And I got to be part of a documentary that they made to celebrate it. That's all available on YouTube. And that was the main thing I said, is that let me go, I'm a conductor.
Yeah.
And I actually got to work with Brian not long before he died. In Perth, I was in the chorus of the West Australian Opera Company. And we did a production of Deflator Mouse, and it was Lindy Hume's production, beautiful, beautiful production, all set in the 20s, Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers kind of style. And Stace was the conductor. And the company knew that I was interested in professional development and conducting and musical direction, so they actually got me to take notes for him. So I got to meet him and work sort of closely with him. So it was really special then to get that moment of being awarded that prize. Wow. It was great.
Yeah, of course. You were the program leader of the National Academy of Singing and Dramatic Arts in Christchurch up until 2021. Yep. So what was that like? Tell me about that role.
So let's talk about lots of different sides of my career.
Yes.
But I mean, that's what you have to do to have an arts career in Australia.
Yeah, and you have done so much the same but different stuff over your career.
That's right. Overachiever, who knows? Or just get bored really easily. Maybe my career is just, undiagnosed ADHD. Who knows?
We all have it.
We're creative. That's what we need. So the education side, starting working in schools, then led to working in universities. And I was singing teaching at the VCA for a little while. I was teaching a whole lot of other courses. And as I focused more on my PhD, I wanted to sort of streamline more into the academic side of things. So I had a job at the Queensland Conservatorium, Griffith University, in their music theatre course full-time for a couple of years. And then got the opportunity to be program leader at NASDA in Christchurch. And that was a big move, to basically drop everything and move to New Zealand. And, it was the beginning of 2020. And of course, none of us knew what was about to happen in 2020. So I've moved to New Zealand on the 24th of January, 2020, which was exactly 2 months before Christchurch New Zealand went into its lockdown. It was a pretty remarkable time. I started work in early February. I had to learn the whole course to, get my head around how to lead it, meet all the staff that I was working with newly, and meet all the students and work out what my mark on that would be. And then we went into lockdown, and I had to work out how to take a performing arts course that was really only practical online. The institution we were working in, the ARA Institute of Canterbury, was really smart about how they did it. Some of the institutions in Australia basically said to all their academics, you're teaching online from tomorrow. ARTA were really smart and said, it's 2 weeks before the Easter break and there was meant to be a 2-week break at Easter. We're going to take the break now so that you can be trained up and work out how you're going to deliver your course. And then we go into online delivery as we see how long this is going to last for. I had a whole lot of beautiful staff that hadn't really done any online delivery before. I hadn't done a lot of that sort of stuff before.
That's right. We weren't prepared, the world really.
But when I was working at Melbourne Uni, I was teaching in these really big programs called their breadth electives, that's breadth with a D, about broadening people's degrees. So people in the law department or, the arts department could come and do 1 unit in music theatre. And because the lecture theatres at the VCA weren't big enough to accommodate this huge number of people, we had lecture capture and we were doing online quizzes and so I already had some experience in that space, which I was very fortunate about. So I became Trevor from tech support. I was fielding questions from all of the students and all of the staff about how do we make this work? How do we teach singing lessons on Zoom? What are the special settings that we have to do? And I don't know. So I watched a YouTube video. I did some research. But once we came out of that, it was a great opportunity. The program leader of a course like that is artistic director because you get to curate the shows that they'll be doing. An educator, an education leader at such a high level, making sure the course is focused. We actually rewrote the whole course while I was there and came up with a really brilliant course that I never got to deliver because I left to come back to Australia before then because borders being closed and family and all that stuff just kind of got too hard.
Of course, yeah.
But it was a great part of my career. It helped me learn lots of things about myself in terms of what I wanted in my career. And interestingly, I haven't really worked in the tertiary space full-time since because I've been focusing on the performing side of things. But it really helped me understand what I want and whether I wanted to be working overseas or, it was great. And we worked with some amazing students who it's beautiful to see the diverse things they've gone on to do. Because I think, as we've talked about, my career has been really diverse in the kinds of things that I've done. I haven't trod a particularly traditional pathway in what a music theatre course or a classical music degree might look like. And I think that's actually really important in an arts landscape like we've got now because you have to be thinking, what else can I do? Two students in particular that I worked with that were actually really great in the course, but possibly didn't fit the traditional mould of what a music theatre performer would look like. And I re-encountered them a couple of years ago and they're working as social hosts on cruise ships. And they always loved to party at uni. And I've reconnected with them and just gone, I'm so proud of you finding this perfect job for you that your degree did still prepare you for. 100%. That is not a fail in any way of, I didn't end up on Broadway. You're doing a job that brings in, like the conducting I talked about, brings in all the elements of the things that you do and tailors it to you. And I think that's what a music theatre or performing arts degree of any kind can do is you then work out what to do with it.
Yeah.
So it was a joy to mentor those students and to stay connected with them now.
Of course, yeah. Now, let's talk Adelaide Cabaret Festival.
Yes.
You've been performing there for
11
years, which...
And I was 12 when I started, And
I wasn't born. No. Sorry. 10 years. That's incredible. You've often done the piano bar. Has that always been happening for the 10 years?
Yeah. So I was brought on in that 11 years ago. I was brought on. They were just mixing up what they were doing with their late night entertainment because there was pretty much always the lineup show late night that's been called various things over the year. Yeah. And then there was usually a free element to it as well, which is what I became. And in the foyer of the Festival Theatre before the renovations, it had that big open space of the foyer. They basically just set up a stage and a piano. And the first and third weekend was hosted by Guy Noble. And in the middle weekend, they took a punt on this guy, which was great. I'd known Zach Tyler, who was one of the associate producers, quite well for a long time. And he said, how about we just get you into this middle weekend? Guy can't do all three, so we'll put you in that one and we'll organise you some guests. And see what happens. I'm like, yeah, let's go for it. And it went incredibly well. I got to get, people like Frisky and Manish up that year, incredible cabaret performers, plus some local people to Adelaide. And that formula seemed to work really beautifully. So as the festival centre went through its renovations, we moved the piano bar around to different places. So we were down in the old bistro at one point, which was wacky. And now we've landed in the Quartet Bar, which seems to feel like the more permanent home for it. And it's built this beautiful following. I start at 9:30 every night. It's a late night. And if people have been seeing other shows, they'll come straight and bags their table. There are people sitting in there for up to an hour, even more, beforehand, just having a drink, chilling, having a chat. People that are so loyal that they come and see me every year. The fact that it's free is amazing, so anyone can have a cabaret festival experience.
That's right.
Even without buying a ticket, they can come in and see an artist from the festival, see artists from around Adelaide. I've built amazing networks with musicians and performers around Adelaide. So I've got this huge list that I message every year and say, do you want to come to the piano bar this year? When do you want to come? It's so fun.
Yeah.
And chaos ensues. You've been there, you've seen it. Like people, at the moment, we've got Beauty and the Beast in the Festival Theatre, which is I'm effectively the foyer of. That cast are coming in to have their post-show drinks on a Sunday night. And Gareth Jacobs just at 11 p.m. is like, oh yeah, well, no, he didn't actually decide to sing. His colleagues went to the sound desk and said, Gareth's going to sing. And I was told Gareth was going to sing. And then he was like, oh, okay. And I messaged him the next day and said, thanks so much. It was actually really special because he's an extraordinary singer. And he went, look, I was really nervous at first because often for music theatre performers to step outside of that character and be themselves on stage, especially when they've only been playing Cogsworth for 2 years, is a lot. And then he settled in and had a ball of a time. But the person that dobbed him in said, I really hope my relationship with him is okay. But it is, which is really, really great. So, we get random things. Virginia Gay will just walk in and say, I'm singing now. We go, okay. Reuben Kay usually doesn't need a microphone. It's a lot of fun and one of the highlights of my year every year.
Yeah, of course. And you mentioned there are a few people that you've had come on stage with you. What's been a highlight or some memories of someone coming up on stage? Or have you got some stories? I'm sure you have many to tell. But
so I do this job really because I'm an epic fanboy. I love music. I've always loved music, and I love Australian music particularly, and I love cabaret, and I love musical theatre. And like even just being able to get some of the Beauty and the Beast cast up on stage, people that are iconic in the Australian music theatre landscape.
100%.
Is really special. And being able to message my friends, Jill Cosgriff, and say, hey, do you want to come? And she goes, sure, absolutely. Michelle Brazier, we'll just stop in, is always great. But 2 highlights for me. A couple of years ago, Angie Hart from the Australian band Frente, and I was obsessed with Frente, obsessed as a kid. Not as a kid, at university. And I went and saw them several times and just loved that band. And Angie was doing, I think it was a David Bowie tribute show. They were paying tribute to a particular record. They were doing Spiders of Mars. Anyway, make me look intelligent in the edit for that bit. You can leave that in, it's fine. And Angie was part of that lineup, and I saw her name and I want to see if I can get her in the festival. And the producers of the festival connect me with people, and I had this delightful email exchange with Angie saying, I'd love it if you came and sang a song in the piano bar if you're interested. And then it was back and forthing about what she should sing, and she was like, well, I'm not sure if you know, but I was in a band called Frente. I was like, of course I know. And we did a cover of a song called Bizarre Love Triangle, which was my favourite thing that they ever did. Maybe I could get up and sing that. I'm like, yes, Angie Hart, you can absolutely
Definitely.
get up and sing Bizarre Love Triangle. And she did. And it was, we don't rehearse when we do spots like that.
Yeah.
She just got up and we just jammed it, and it was absolutely magical. That was really special because I think, she's such a unique voice in the Australian music landscape and just a doll of a human that was beautiful. And the other one that I loved, again, because I was an epic fanboy and have been for years and years and years, was Deborah Conway. Deborah Conway was here doing, was it an Elvis tribute show? I feel like it was, singing Elvis tunes with Paul Grabowski. It was incredible show. And Deborah Conway is just that powerful voice. And I think she's one of the country's greatest singer-songwriters. Her songwriting is mind-blowing. And I've been drawn to it ever since Do Re Mi, since Man Overboard is an iconic song. And I actually got to develop a bit of a relationship with Deborah because her daughter messaged me when she was in year 12 and said, I'm looking for a singing teacher. Would you be able to teach me through my year 12 year through VCE in Melbourne? I was like, yes, Sid Zigia, I know exactly who you are. I would be thrilled to teach you. And if your mum came and picked you up from your lesson every now and then, I'd be even more. So I got to meet Deb and get to know her a little bit, which was great. And so when she was coming to the Cabaret Festival, I emailed her and said, would you consider coming to sing in the piano bar? She's like, absolutely, yes, let's make it happen. And it's like, what would you like to sing? And she said, well, I want to do a duet with you. I want to do Baby It's Cold Outside. So I got to do Baby It's Cold Outside with one of my icons, one of my heroes, Deborah Conway, in the piano bar. And that was an absolute thrill.
Wow.
Julia Zamiro improvising a song about a woman named Brie and bringing it back to cheese. That was another highlight. Amazing people that have been part of this festival, and the random stuff that happens is always just so fun.
Yeah, of course. And now I've got to ask you a question. In terms of the job that you do and the things that you do, you're at the cabaret, you're at theatre, you're here, you're there. And there's always alcohol around and late nights and partying. And how do you manage that? You're at the Cabaret Festival every night. How do you manage that of being up late,
Look, it's a really hard balance. That's a really good question too. I was talking to some friends just last night about what is your self-care? And it's so easy in this industry, and I haven't got an answer for it, to fall into alcohol being your self-care.
Well, that's right, yeah.
So I'll always have a bottle on stage with me. And it's a really interesting thing because actually in lots of ways, particularly for a free event or more when I'm doing a rock and roll gig or when I'm doing the Garden of Unearthly Delights at Fringe, my job is often not about music. My job is often about encouraging bar sales. You're actually employed to keep people around and drinking more. Yeah. And often it's the bar that is paying for you to do that. So yes, Cabaret Festival is a very different beast because it's actually much more about the cabaret.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing a rock and roll gig in a bar, it's for bar sales. And when I drink, people are more likely to drink. And those of you that have seen me before know that I do a thing that if I play a song with a key change, I'll yell key change, everyone goes, woo, and take a good long slug out of their drink. It's the drinking game that we play.
Yeah.
So alcohol is really finely embedded into the texture of what I do. And I've also got a responsibility to make sure I've got a voice from night to night.
Of course. That
I'm rested enough to do my job. And you're right, that's really tricky. I've come to develop quite a good skill, and anyone that comes to see me, I want you to watch me do this because I will almost always be able, I know exactly how much is in that bottle. I'll almost always be able to pour out that much of a glass just before the very last song. So I do actually weigh and measure what I'm drinking through it. And it's a busy job. I'm playing, I'm singing, I'm hosting.
Yeah.
I'm sight reading for the guests. So there's not a lot of time to just sit there and drink, which is good. So it's very rare that across the 3 hours I'm a large person, thankfully, so I'm able to handle it.
Unlike some.
But then, of course, the wind down drink after or going to the disco and the wind down bottle, and that's when it gets out of control. That's when it can get really difficult. Sometimes you've got to let steam offshore, but I've got to keep an eye on that because actually my first responsibility is to make sure I stay healthy and that my voice is still able to do its job. I don't always get it right. And there's often a cheeky whiskey at the end of the night, while I'm watching a TV show to wind down in bed. And I don't think that's the healthiest way to approach it. But it works for me at this stage. I am pretty confident that I don't have a problem with it, that I can monitor myself to know, and I'm grateful for that, I don't have that addict personality that keeps going.
You can see how being in that industry and having it basically thrown at you,
so
you can
many
see how
people
easy.
that have.
Correct. Yeah.
I see some artists that I know very well that do devolve into that. I worked on a cruise ship once with a guy that would drink at 11 o'clock in the morning. It's whiskey for breakfast. And I was like, if friends never let me get there, please. It's tempting. You're in an industry where you're away all the time. I moved into a complicated story, but I moved into a house with my partner in December. I think I've spent less than 14 days there in total since mid-December.
Wow.
You're on the road constantly. You're in weird hotel rooms. Socially, you're with the people that you're on tour with in this weird hotbed of constant connection. They're not the people that you want to see and wind down with. So you wind down on your own in a hotel room. And the easiest way to do that is with a bottle of wine.
Absolutely.
It's not healthy.
No.
So you have to find the balance of the ways to make it healthy, whether it's going for long walks during the daytime when you can, and I don't think I've got it right, but touch wood, most of my health is pretty good, and I have a sensible approach to it.
Yeah, that's right.
Great question.
Yeah. Now, some people watching this might be thinking, why Dr. Trevor Jones?
Ew.
Where's the doctor?
I'm a fake doctor. No. So I did a PhD in musical theatre. I was working in the academic space for a long time, and when you're in a salaried position in a university, generally it's strongly encouraged for you to get a higher degree. I had a bachelor degree with honours and was always keen to further that. And it was a case of finding the right supervisor and the right project of what sort of thing I wanted to spend. It ended up being 7 years researching and writing about and looking at. And I knew it was something to do with, because I live in so many worlds, I live in this weird crossover space where I can be doing opera. I mean, sometimes in the same day, I can have a rehearsal for a musical, go to an opera thing, and then do rock and roll at night. That crossover space and how I do it vocally and authentically and healthily is interesting to me. And then for me, I hear classical singers singing musical theatre songs. There's a very famous recording of Jose Carreras and Kiri Te Kanawa doing West Side Story. And not a consonant to be heard amongst all of them, so if you want to understand a single lyric, good luck. But the singing is incredible and thrilling. And so my project became about how do you facilitate classical singers singing musical theatre with a little bit more authenticity and a bit more of their stylistic stuff through text and style. And how do you develop a coaching strategy that combines the language of both worlds? So I interviewed up to 20 practitioners from all around the world that work in the space. Some of them amazing humans. Eric Stern, who was on the original music team of Into the Woods with Stephen Sondheim on Broadway, Bernadette Peters, Mandy Patinkin. Adrienne Angel, who's a close friend, who is Bernadette Peters' singing teacher in New York. I got to interview and amazing Australians like Ali McGregor and Antoinette Halloran, Vanessa Scammell, to find out how they approach it. And then I sort of packaged that up into 5 hours of let's just try some stuff with some singers, and earned my PhD. So I say to people that I'm a doctor. And sometimes airlines will sit you have doctor on your title.
Yes.
They see doctor and they'll seat you next to someone that's got health issues. I sat on a plane next to a woman that said, now I just need you to know I have a severe peanut allergy. I've already wiped down all the surfaces, but please make sure if you're getting any food that there's no nuts involved. And here's my EpiPen. And then the other woman on the other side of her came and she was also a doctor. And we're like, oh, they've just looked at the doctor on our titles and seated us next to this woman. Like, doll, I can't help you. No. I can sing show tunes at you to help you feel better, but I'm not sticking an EpiPen into you. And the other woman was a psychiatrist, and she said, haven't used one for a really long time, but if something happens, let's go. Like, great, excellent. So yes, I am a doctor. I just cannot make you feel better other than through show tunes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, who's been the most famous person you've met?
Oh, I did meet Patti LuPone very briefly when she was here, but it was so brief, and it was because the marketing people at the festival centre just knew what a huge fan I am. Huge fan. And they saw me sitting in the cafe when they were doing a media thing with her outside the cafe, and they brought her in to meet me. I'm like, yeah, that was pretty thrilling. That was pretty great.
Wow.
When John Cameron Mitchell was here, who I think is just a doll of a human, an incredible artist that wrote. A lot of people don't iconically know his name immediately, but know Hedwig and the Angry Inch. And John wrote and played that role and was here for Cabaret Festival. Yeah, so pretty much was all just through Cabaret Festival. I've got nothing else outside Cabaret. I just hibernate in the months that aren't June. But I got to know John when he was here, and to the point where I ran into him in a foyer in New York, and he ran up to me and gave me a hug. I'm like, oh, plus Michael Feinstein was here for the Cabaret Festival. And Michael, that puts me 1 degree of separation from Liza Minnelli. Michael is best friends with Liza Minnelli. I am 1 degree of separation from Liza. It's the most thrilling thing. Yeah, I think that's probably, for me, it's all about meeting your idols and those people that have inspired you through your career, like Deborah and Angie and all those people.
Yeah, yeah. Now, at the end of each episode, I ask a question to ask the next guest.
Oh, okay.
It can be a question about absolutely anything. Our last guest was Jennifer Valedict. And
yes, I love Jen.
Her question was, martinis, vodka or gin in the martini?
Gin.
She was the same.
Absolutely,
she was the
gin.
Same. Yep.
I'm not saying a vodka martini is an abomination, but it's not how they were invented. I think a vodka martini is tasteless and lightweight. And, you know, you asked my opinion, and I'm going to give it very clearly.
That's what you're here for.
And the joy of... And I would love, actually, you know, comment. I want people to comment and get passionate about this in the comments for this podcast. I'm going to put it out there and say vodka martinis taste the same no matter what vodka you use. Gin martinis are totally different depending on the botanicals of the gin, and I'm a doctor, therefore that is science.
That's right. So comment below. So now I'm going to ask you, it could be, I actually don't know who it's going to be the next guest.
Yes.
But a question for the next guest.
A question for the next guest. Okay. I'm trying not to make it alcohol related because I feel like that's been the last half hour of the podcast.
I've had all sorts of questions. So
yeah. And given that they're arts related, yeah, great. Okay. I want to know what their wind down routine is. We've talked about, you know, how potentially my wind down routine isn't the healthiest. And I think a lot of us have not very healthy wind down routines. And this is exactly what I was talking to my friends about last night. What's your wind down routine? How do you finish a piece of live theatre or a shoot on a film or a TV show and disconnect from that character, particularly if you're doing something traumatic? What's your unloading procedure to come back into the real world?
Brilliant question.
I think that's a good question. I'm thrilled.
Brilliant question.
Inspired by yours.
Now, one final question I have for you. Is there someone you think would be good on Let's Chat Showbiz?
Oh.
That's a question for you.
Yes, absolutely. I think I would love to see you interview Matt Gilbertson, not Hans. I would love to see you interview Matt Gilbertson because Hans is a national treasure and is amazing, but Matt Gilbertson is the brains. And anytime I talk to Matt, I'm so inspired by the way he thinks and the way he acknowledges the flippancy of Hans, but also the importance of that. And he and I were talking the other day about, I really admire the way he goes for his trolls online.
Yeah, he does. Yep.
And I love that. And we talked about the fact that cabaret is a political act.
Mm.
And even though if you go and see Hans, you're seeing Kylie Minogue's songs played on the accordion doing the jump splits, it's still a political act because people get angry about it. And he calls them out on it. And I love that. And that's all Matt.
Yeah.
I think he'd be a great person to talk to.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. And also Catherine Campbell. Yeah. Catherine Campbell is an Adelaide-based icon that teaches in the tertiary space now, actually discovered Hans playing in the Adelaide markets. He was busking in the Adelaide markets, and Kath was running a Friday night show at the Weimar Room here in Adelaide and said, why don't you come in and be part of the show? And that's how the character of Hans started to evolve.
Yeah.
Kath's an icon and has seen so many sides and was very close to the late Frank Ford, who is an important legacy in the fringe world and the Cabaret Festival world.
100%.
I think they would be wonderful people for you to speak to build this legacy, because this is what you're doing, is you're documenting legacy, and it's so important.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your time, Trevor. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. An absolute delight.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want more episodes of Let's Chat Showbiz, you can follow along on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Instagram, TikTok, and even Facebook for all you oldies. See you next time on Let's Chat Showbiz.